Hi, everyone. Um, thanks a lot for having us. And it's a pleasure to be back. I think today I wanted to present what we call a creative matrix, which is something that I had presented in the past, but it's evolved quite a bit since we last spoke about it. But maybe first, who we are. So we're a UA and creative agency, and we work with mobile apps and mobile games, running the user acquisition on channels that are mostly creative driven. So the likes of Meta, Google, TikTok, and video ad networks. And they're all creative driven. So we also produce and test a lot of creative. Um, and why it's relevant. So basically, we work with a lot of different apps and a lot of different games, meaning that we really produce a lot of content. And we started seeing certain patterns with different games and different apps, and starting to understand what performs for what type of apps. And this is these learnings that I wanted to share with you today. But maybe before that, I also wanted to tell you a little bit more about creative testing and how we run creative testing. So we still do split tests on Facebook, which is becoming, I think, more and more controversial because there are more and more different campaign types. There are more and more channels, and all the different channels tend to perform slightly differently, and perhaps certain creatives will pick up a little bit less depending on the channel you're running on. But we still like doing creative tests on Meta because it allows you to collect the same amount of data for all the different ads that you're testing. So this is why we still like it. But the question of transferability needs being asked. And again, you can end up in a situation where you're running your test on Android on an MAI campaign, but most of your campaigns are on iOS, on I don't know, Applovin, and they're optimizing for another event. So obviously, in this case, we would recommend adapting the creative testing framework to your user acquisition. And yeah, the way we do it, we'll typically try to test 5 creatives every week. We'll split them between new concepts, things that haven't been tested before, to try and really unlock new pockets of performance. But we're also going to iterate, and iterations allow you to isolate the parameter that you want to look at and have variations of that different parameter. We do this ideally on a weekly basis. We reach conclusions, build new hypotheses when we look at the data, and we run another test. Um, so this is how we do it. And again, by doing this for a lot of different apps across a lot of different categories, we came up with quite a few conclusions. So I'm going to run through the framework that we've developed, but I'm also going to then be talking about specific examples for casual games. And since we have quite a few members of the audience who are coming from not gaming apps, I will try to also I will tell you more about what, in our opinion, what we've been adapting from games to non-gaming. Okay, so in terms of segmentation, when I made that presentation a few years ago, our creative matrix looked like the top left corner. But a few years later, we've defined a lot more different concept types, and we're doing this across more categories. So basically, it's a bit less pixelated, like it's taking a lot more shape, and I'm quite curious to see what it's going to look like in a few years. But obviously, we have only 30 minutes, so we can't really go through all the different cells and how we would go about them. So this is the creative matrix simplified. So we're seeing 5 big groups of creatives. So let me define them. For the first one, we call it passive. So it's more just showcasing what the game is about, maybe just showing satisfying gameplay. And we're going to be discussing in a bit where we see this perform a little bit better. Then there is something that is what we call active. So they're more interactive ads. You're going to be maybe seeing, the hand doing some specific movements in the gameplay, and there'll be a lot more communication with the user as well. So maybe asking the user a question, a brain teaser, or something like this. So really engaging the user in watching the creative as well. And then there's obviously storytelling. The ads which also incorporate maybe the characters ideally that you have in the game and how you can make the most of that. There are quite a lot related to drama, which we'll also talk about, but definitely not only. Then there are the ads that relate to what we call expertise. So maybe it will be a tutorial ad to show how the game works. Maybe it will be about how to get better at the game, some tips. Maybe it will be about progression, how you progress within the game. And then the last type of concepts is what we call social. So basically, how you can also be playing, for example, on the competitive aspects of the game. So, yeah, to put it quite simply, what we're seeing is that for casual games, maybe the top three categories perform a little bit better. Whereas for maybe more mid-core titles, anything that is about expertise, so showing that you're getting really good at something, or social, which is also the social proof of that expertise, is tends to work a bit better. But obviously, these kind of this heat map is also here to be proven wrong. And I think every so often when we start working with a new game, we are being proven wrong by a new concept in a category that we in a concept type that we had previously not seen work for a specific game type. Now, the concept types are not everything. The other thing that we have found work well in terms of segmentation is the different execution types. So the first one is just showing gameplay, showing animations of the different characters. This gameplay could be recorded, it could be recreated, but anyway, focusing on motion graphics. The second one is more native in UGC. This has been a very big trend for the past year or year and a half. And really, it's involving perhaps actors, but not necessarily. It's really mostly about how you can communicate the fact that the creative is, that it is a lot more. It's a testimonial given by a user, so something that is a lot more organic. It's looking a lot less polished, just something that is perhaps more authentic. And then there's statics. So statics for games, I think, for a long time have been quite have been at least more ignored a few years ago. I think now we're seeing them perform a lot better. But that's also related to the channels where we're running them. For example, on Facebook, we do see that statics can take a big chunk of the scale. And that is true, I think, in particular for non-gaming, where actually static can be really the main type of creatives that delivers. Okay, so now we're going to go through some examples. So basically, after I've rather vaguely defined, we're going to try to define these concept types in a bit more detail. The examples that we have there are coming from our own production, but also obviously from the ads library or Ensensor Tower. Okay, so as I was saying, there is the concept types and there is the execution type. So we can now create a matrix for a specific game that is concepts by execution types. And you can slowly, ideally with a new game, actually, you can probably start from scratch and not really go with the heat map, but just focus on trying to fill all the different cells of the matrix and come up with your own conclusions as to what performs the best for your game. But in our case, when it comes to casual games in general, this is what we found. So definitely passive, what we call passive creatives have performed well when it comes to this animation recreated gameplay and for statics. But we've also seen a lot of success with more active. So when the user is a little bit more, is a lot more engaged in the creative across all different types of executions, and storytelling is also really a big concept type when it comes to casual games. But we're gonna try and go through quite a few of them. Okay, so when it comes to exploring, this is kind of what can be summarized by clearing the clouds and opening the locks. And this is one example where the merge move leads to clearing this area. And we're seeing that this visual element of clearing, uncovering, unlocking is working really well. It wouldn't work necessarily for all the different games, but if you have this world to explore within the game, we're seeing that it's working quite well. The second one is more around satisfying gameplay. So just simply showing a sequence of moves being performed, and we see that this perform well in particular, where you have this kind of snowballing effect. So when one move can lead to a cascade of different effects, this seems to be performing really well. So again, if your game includes such a mechanic, we would definitely recommend testing it. There is also something that is almost similar, which we call the relaxing concept. The relaxing concept is really when you just spell it out. This game is very relaxing, and you can do this by showing this stock footage of a forest, but it could be water, a river, or communicating that in a different way. So it's a little bit again like the satisfying concept, but spelling out that really it's about relaxation. And we know that it is a key motivator for players. So it's also a really good idea to test it. And we are seeing this work particularly well for instance, solitaire games or mahjong games or word games. Also, they are the categories where we do prioritize this type of concepts. They are also categories where or games where you don't necessarily have a lot of characters, where you don't necessarily have a meta game that is always around a story. It's a lot more about the gameplay itself. And so that's how we're closing this first category, so the passive concepts. And yeah, again, just showcase the game, but showcase it in a satisfying way that will raise the curiosity of the user. There is now we're going more to brain teasers, which is the first kind of active concept, and we have seen that appealing to the ego of the user by asking them, "Are you smart enough to solve this?" is something that is working really well. I think this ad is also really interesting because it is showing something that is really simple, but it's making it look a little bit difficult. And we've seen that this works really well. Um, Quite often, the brain teasers that we have using numbers don't work, are not the best ones, but in this case, it seems to be working for this game. Um, yeah, and the other type that we have in a different execution type, more native UGC, is obviously we've seen a lot this IQ meters in this type of creatives. As you make the right moves, your IQ is going up, and vice versa. So this is also something that we've seen work well, and you can also spell it out or illustrate it more in a static way, like in the example here. So we're actually seeing this type of concept work for very similar apps to the ones where the relaxing concept is working well, and even games that appeal to the relaxing concept tend to actually see more ads in the brain teaser type lately. This may not have been the case a few years ago, but I think lately there's a lot more maybe brain teasers than ads that are focusing on the relaxing aspect, at least in our experience. So another way of presenting active concepts is talking about self-expression or customization of the game. So this is one example from Empires and Puzzles, where they just ask you to choose your origin, choose this, choose that, and it's a little bit similar to asking the user to respond to a question on an opinion or a brain teaser. But here it's just a lot more about saying what you prefer, where your preference lies, and how it will also impact the gameplay. So by just being very by asking like choose your origin or choose this or that, you're also engaging with the user, and we're seeing that this is also performing well. In general, we've seen this work maybe for slightly less casual games, but I think as these examples show, you can definitely also try it for different, for more casual games. Gonna let this ad finish. But yeah. So again, there were a lot of choices at the beginning, and these choices, I guess here in this case, mixed with the satisfying type of gameplay, can also be very engaging. And there's another active concept that we see. It's a bit less around around asking what you prefer, but a lot more about there's this thing that needs being done, and you show how it is, how the task is being completed. We're seeing this work well, if you have some customer management element in the game. So as in this merge title, but we also see it work well in merge games because I think there's a tidying aspect to it, which you see a little bit more, perhaps, or no, which we will not see, but as you can guess, the the ad on the right, does a mess, and the mess disappears as you're merging. Okay, so like this task is concept is really asking you to do something on the screen, but you can probably improve it if you have characters in your game. And now we're moving into this narrative storytelling type of concepts. So if you have characters, obviously make the most of them and try to have these clear tasks, a little bit like it is defined here with arrows pointing to what needs being done, and show how you can save the character, show a very clear task to be completed. And because you have characters, you can obviously create an emotional link with these characters a lot more easily. The other one that I wanted to show for this ad, or for this type of concept, is this Avani ad. So these are all, I'm sure you know them, but what I liked about the comparison of the two is that the one on the right has performed well. That type of concept has performed well for quite a few years for Avani, but I think that it was quite interesting to see how Royal Match has managed to kind of adapt it to their own gameplay. And really, when you draw inspiration from other concepts, it's quite important to go and see how you can really adapt the concept of another game to your own game. And obviously, this is very dramatic. Not everyone wants to do this type of ads, but also, you don't need to go all the way with drama and characters who are about to freeze or anything like that. This is another example of a storytelling type of concept, but here we focus a lot more on the characters, even more so. And I think that we're able to do this because the characters are a lot more fleshed out. So you can do a lot more animation with them, and you can tell a lot more a story that is a lot more elaborate. You still show gameplay in the second part of the game, because we're seeing that showing only the narrative storytelling aspect can be maybe a bit too misleading. But if you mix it with the game, it definitely builds that right connection between the game and the creative itself. And now moving on to more UGC examples, the narrative ads can also be, maybe their life can be extended if you turn it into a UGC ad. So what we understand by native or UGC is not only using an actor; it can also simply just be done by adding a voiceover to the ad. I don't know if the sound will
Am
work
I dreaming?
here.
Or is America being invaded right now? Oh no, it's this game, Fight for America. This is where you have to get rid of the invaders before they take over all the states. Woo, look, I'm getting rid of so many, but there are so many coming in. Where are they all coming from? Pew pew pew. America is so great. We cannot let these invade take over. Pew pew pew. This is ridiculous.
And also, in my personal opinion, what's great about UGC is, or native in general, is that you can really make it a bit more funny, which we can see in that second example.
With my sister. Then I got a letter from a distant relative who died, and she left me her mansion. But it's actually in complete disarray, and it's going to cost me a fortune to repair. The neighbor is really hot, and he said he could help me with repairs. One thing led to another, and I'm having his baby. Or it could be my ex-baby. I'm not really sure.
Are you talking about Lily's garden again?
Yes, but it's so real to me. You have to check it out.
Okay, so to be honest, I think this creative is a little bit of a private joke for the UA community, and no one outside of it understands it. But it's a still like this is the perfect place to show it. Yeah, so in any case, I think that what is cool about UGC is that you have a new execution type. So if you see that something is working with any of the other concept types, with any of the other execution types, you can try to adapt it to UGC. And storytelling in general is definitely a good example. Right now, for casual games in particular, competition, we have one example on the left. In general, we don't see like the best results with trying to show competition for casual games. They're a little bit too maybe, well, specifically casual for people to care enough about being better. It's a lot more about enjoying yourself on your own. But there are exceptions.
My daughter is trying to overtake me on Candy Crush. Just 3,000 more levels to go.
Also with UGC, because you're showing, people, actors, be a lot more. You can play a lot more on the social aspect, showing maybe simple leaderboards, which is what you would have done if you're doing this only with motion graphics, may not necessarily be enough. But with UGC, it also opens up different concept types to different game categories where we wouldn't necessarily see great performance otherwise. Okay, so now how can we adapt the learnings that we have from gaming to apps? So this is kind of the matrix that we have more for apps. It's quite difficult to put all the apps in one category, so this is probably a little bit too summarized. But in general, what we're seeing is that the passive concept can be really good, maybe if you want to show the ease of use of the app, if you just want to show how quickly and easily you can start using it. The active type of concept is quite difficult because showing in the video how the app is used, it is like there's quite a few apps where you can really show in 10 seconds. This is how you use an app in a video, but we'll see an example. Storytelling, I think when it comes to apps, it's a lot more the branded side of things. It is obviously very important. I think for apps, brand identity is a lot more important, but maybe for performance, it's not the best thing. The one category that we think works really well when it comes to apps is definitely expertise. So showing where the app can take you, like using this app is a good way to do X. This is something that we're seeing a lot of success with. Okay, so as we've seen with this initial task concept, here you're tasked to focus on 10 seconds on this dot. Done. And basically, you're just being told, great job, you meditated. You have a really good example of what the app is about. And also where, how easy it is to use as well. But again, sorry, I'm just going to go back here. The thing is that it's quite hard to adapt your content to that. Like you can't do, I don't know, health and fitness or fitness in 10 seconds. That would be a lot more difficult to adapt. Do 10 push-ups in 10 seconds whilst you're scrolling on Facebook. Okay, so then really what is key, as I was saying, is really explaining where the app can take you, what type of progress you can expect, what the app is going to give you. So basically, the concepts that are doing the before after are really great for that, or the concepts that show you the difference of without the app are really good, which is also something we see work well in gaming. But I'm not sure if we're going to be. So basically, in gaming, this whole upgrade thing is something that is that's coming straight from gaming. But you can also really adapt it to non-gaming, and here are a few examples of how you can do that. There are also what I like to call pro tips. I'm going to play.
Would you like to know why I skip breakfast?
What I love about this ad is like no one's really asked him why, but he's really telling us why. And this is honestly in UGC, I think this is one of the best hooks. Like this assumption that someone really wants to know this thing that no one's really asked you about. I mean, it's a great type of creative.
This is the difference between a pro and a noob in Ebony, the King's
Again,
Return.
No one's really asked us that question, but now we really want to know what the difference is. But you can be a little bit more subtle, like in this Headspace ad where they just show you a few of the, some tips. I think what is important in this concept type is, again, first of all, make it sound like really everyone wants to know it. And it's quite similar to, the cheat codes in games. Like, this is a secret, but I'm going to tell you. And yeah, it's definitely something that we see work quite well. Another one is tutorial, what we call a tutorial concept. And tutorial is really just showing how easy it is to use. So it isn't as much as where it can take you, but especially for products that maybe are a little bit harder to explain because they're a new category, they don't maybe exist. Well, they didn't exist a couple of years ago, so you kind of need to educate your audience. It's something that performs quite well. But it's also important to do this maybe because you can tell the user, like in this example, where it can take you. So this is for a running health and fitness app. So it kind of sets the bars of what your objectives would be. And setting these is actually also a way to really tell you where it can take you, a little bit like one of the previous examples that I was giving. But in non-gaming, we have this. This is one for this fintech company, where it just shows you how you can, all the different things that you can get done with the app in really a few seconds, and how easy it is to do it. So this is another concept that we're seeing work really well. And another and a final one is the comparison. So in general, I think that the social aspect for non-gaming is also not important. I think it works a lot better for mid-core titles, but there are exceptions to this. So we've seen that. But there are exceptions. And this is one from Headway, so the book summary app, where it tells you not only just read a lot of books, but become the most interesting person in the room, where there is obviously a clear comparison to others as you do it. Okay, which closes all the different examples that I've had both on the gaming and the non-gaming side. But when you start advertising for a specific game, for a new game or a new app that you're working on, we think that it's important to create this heat map of all the different concepts that you can use and all the different execution types, and try to prioritize them. So as we've seen for a game, look at what elements you have in your game that you can use. Do you have characters? Can you use brain teasers? Do you have a world that can be uncovered? All these different elements will inform the type of creatives that you can really test. For an app, in general, and again, it's quite hard to summarize that in one sentence, but try to communicate either on the ease of use, to convince people that really it's easy to book a ticket using this app, or communicate or where it can take you, because there are a lot of apps that are about improvement, self-improvement. So you really need to convince the user that they will actually achieve these goals. Then try to order them, make a creative testing plan based on this. But once you do it, leave some space for wildcards. So I think an evolution we've seen in the industry in the past couple of years was that we previously we could test different concepts a lot more freely. Now, quite a lot app developers, game developers are asking to say, okay, in April we're going to focus on this type of concept. In May we're going to focus on that type of concept, which is good because it means that you can really explore a specific concept in depth. But on the other hand, you may be missing out on other things. So leave some space for wildcard ideas, and maybe do just 80% of your new creatives in these concept types that you have prioritized for any given month, and leave 20% of your production to other types of creatives. When something works, obviously iterate on it, use also the different execution types that are offered to you, and try to basically translate the concept types to different execution types, and how visually this can look. Finally, make the most of statics. I think quite a lot, especially in gaming, we tend to focus on videos or sometimes playables. And similarly to the fourth best practice, when taking inspiration from competitors, like in this Royal Match example that I showed, really try to adapt the creative to your own creative using your own gameplay mechanics. And how you can do that is really key to make a creative work. And finally, so I've shown our quite big creative matrix at the beginning, and we'll be releasing an updated version of it soon. So I hope that you guys can also see it, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect. Oh, we have a lot of questions. And yeah, it's always fun to see creative examples. And yeah, that's super interesting. Right. So can we reverse, I guess, the first questions maybe? The oldest one. Let's go. Oh, no, sorry. No? Okay, yeah, let's just go with it. Do you think, do you think in the future the creatives will be automatically made by AI?
So for now, I think AI is obviously very interesting. Where we see potential, I think, in the short run is potentially with ideation. You can definitely ask ChatGPT for a couple of ideas, and even if they're not great, you can modify them. We're also seeing potential with maybe creating assets. But when it comes to creating videos, I think we're not there yet, but it's going really fast. So I don't know, maybe there's a new tool that was released this morning. But the discussions that we're having, a lot of developers are a bit wary of it for copyright issues, because we don't really know who owns what with AI generated assets.
Cool, thank you. Now I've figured out which questions. Do you run any ads for hyper casual games, and do you see any difference from casual games from creative production perspective?
I think for hyper casual, we're seeing a lot more. We tend to do a bit less of hyper casual, to be transparent, but what we see is a lot more gameplay focused creatives, which means that they're more in a passive, what we would call the passive category. I think it's related also to the fact that it's a lot easier to iterate on them. There are maybe fewer characters in hyper casual games, so the other concepts are a little bit harder to implement. But obviously, hyper casual is moving a little bit into a mixed business model, hybrid, and in that sense, I think that there are a few more different types of concepts that we're seeing work well.
Cool, awesome. Could you please describe your framework for testing creatives on TikTok? What do you do about rapid creative burnout?
So it is true that because the audiences are smaller and the CPMs are a bit lower on TikTok typically, you tend to see ad fatigue kick in a lot more. I think what we're getting used to is just the fact that you have to test more creatives, but you have to also be ready that your performance on TikTok will be going up and down a little bit more. So there's more volatility in TikTok, which is mostly creative led.
Nice. And what split between video static playables do you see?
I mean, in general, on the channels that we're running on, there is a majority of video. But I know that playables are also very important. When it comes, I think for static, again, that's for games. But that would be if you're doing it really well, it would be 20 to 30% of your spend on a channel like Meta.
I like this, like rapid fire questions as well.
Yeah, go on.
Super. What is regular success rate of creatives do you have?
I think that varies a lot from one game to another, and I think one of the reasons it varies is also how old the game is going to be. For instance, if you're working with a game that is 10 years old, it will be a lot more difficult potentially than with a game that is in soft launch.
Cool. How well the UGC videos perform compared with other types of videos? They're more complex to produce. They bring a significant ROI? Question mark.
So what I'm gonna answer by saying that when I was preparing this presentation, I had a look at the ads that are running on Sensor Tower on TikTok, and what I noticed is for non-gaming, I can't remember what non-gaming category I was looking at. It was only UGC, but for gaming, it was actually there was no UGC at all. And I'm wondering if we're not seeing. So we're also seeing, I think, a slight decrease in demand for UGC creatives from our clients. More recently, I think January, February, we had a lot of demand, and I think March and April, this demand has went down. So I'm more answering that question from our own perspective rather than a strictly UA perspective. Perhaps UGC was a trend, and maybe we're seeing a little bit less of it. But yeah, at least for games, again, for non-gaming, we have not seen that.
Cool. And the last question: have you thought about to use creative ads to promote social impact?
I don't know.
I guess maybe non-UA.
For no.
Did anyone ask
I think
this
the answer is
live
no.
in the room? No. They can follow up
No, I'm
later.
not quite sure.
Okay. That's yeah. That's it for questions. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time.
Thanks so much.